Lesson 11, Building Web Forms. In this lesson, you'll look at how to validate your forms so that when a user adds a name, email, or zip code, the form will check to see if these are valid. What I have here is a pre-existing form, which you can see in Dreamweaver by this red dashed line. And I also have 3 fields: your name, your email, and zip code. One of the most important things with forms is good names or naming. This is very important because it helps you identify the various elements of your form. For example, if I click on the Your Name field, by default you'll see in the lower left-hand corner in the Property Inspector that the name of this text field is text field 1. It's actually a terrible name. What I'm going to do is select that and type in name. I need to do this with the next 2 fields as well. So the email form is text field 2. I'm going to select that and type email. Same thing with zip code. I'm going to go ahead and type in zip. Now you'll see why this is important in a moment. The next thing you'll want to do is actually add a button, a submit button, at the very bottom of this form. I'm going to click here down at the very bottom. However, I want to make sure I'm still inside the red dashed form field. To add a button, I'm going to double-click the Insert panel, click on the menu and choose Forms, and then here I'm going to scroll down and select Button. Now, the Input Tag Accessibility window opens. At this point, there's really nothing we need to change here. I'm going to click OK. And you'll see a Submit button has now been added. Although we're not going to be making any changes in this exercise, if you click on the Submit button, you'll see the properties exist here as well. Now, it's not a bad idea, although it's not required, to name this button as well. So you'll see that the button name is called Button, which is very generic. You could rename this Submit, which makes a lot of sense. Okay, now we're going to look at behaviors, and behaviors are going to allow you to validate the form. In order to have the validation work, you need to click on the Submit button, because this is the element or the button that you're going to be adding your behavior to. Go up to Window and choose Behaviors, and the Behavior panel opens. Behaviors are really Dreamweaver's name for JavaScript. And the way that JavaScript works is we have an element such as a button, and we're going to be adding one of these behaviors to it, and then we're going to be associating this behavior with an event. So there's a small plus sign here. Go ahead and click on that. A long list of behaviors opens. I'm going to choose Validate Form down here at the bottom, and the Validate Form window appears. Here in the Fields menu, you can see why it's so important to give your fields good names. So the very first one says Input Name. You'll want to check Required here so that the value is required. This form cannot be submitted unless someone puts something into that name field. Now go ahead and click on Input Email. Also choose Required. Now the second level is down here at the very bottom. By default, the form field will accept anything, and it would still submit. Well, we want to make it a little bit more strict by clicking Email Address. And then let's click on the Input Zip Code and also make that required. So you have 3 fields which have required values: name, email, and zip. Let's click OK, and let's go ahead and test this. Save your file, preview in your browser. So now we're going to go ahead and submit this form without entering any information. I'm going to scroll down and choose Submit, and you'll see a window appear. The following errors occurred: name is required, email is required, and zip is required. Okay, so the user needs to add a name. I'll type mine in, Jeremy. Now again, just to show you what happens, if I just put in whatever, literally the text whatever, and then maybe I'll put in my zip code here. I submit. The following error occurred: email must contain an email address. Click OK. So I will type in info@equint.com. Okay. One important note here: this does not necessarily mean that the email is valid. In other words, this could still be a fake email, but at the very least it has the correct syntax. In other words, the @ and the .com, for example. Now if we go ahead and press Submit, this is correct. One thing I want to show you as well, I'm going to put in some information again. Let's look at the zip code field for a second. So let's go ahead and type in some text. Your name, your email, and then zip code. I'm going to type in whatever. I'm going to click Submit. As far as Dreamweaver is concerned, this is valid. Obviously, we need numbers in here. Let's return to Dreamweaver for a second. I'll now show you how to edit a pre-existing behavior. So what I'd like to do is go over to my behavior panel here. You'll see that there is an option on-click validate form. So what that's really saying is when a user clicks on this button Submit, go ahead and run this behavior or this form validation. But what if you want to edit this form after the fact? Within the Behaviors panel, double-click on Validate Form. The window comes back in. Go ahead and click on Input Zip. What you'll need to do is in the Accept category, click on Number. This ensures that the user must not only fill in the field, but they actually must put in a number as well. What you've seen are a few tips allowing you to validate forms in Dreamweaver CS4.